Hello, hello. Welcome, everybody. Today's theme is the photography of Rune Johansen. I want to tell you a little bit about Stefan. He's an artist and educator living in Germany, and he teaches a variety of classes for StrudelmediaLive, from surrealism and gestalt to mentoring intensives. And he will also teach a mentoring intensive starting on November 4. And for this class, we accept only 6 students. So that's a great class for people who would like to dive deeper into a long-term project. I will be teaching my monthly mentoring group called Diving Deep, and that starts on October 20th. If you have missed any past Photobook shows and you would like to watch them, go to our YouTube channel. And you can see all of Stefan's Photobook shows there, the past show. And I was about to say the talk will last about 75 minutes, but who knows? Who knows? And yeah, just want to welcome you. And Stefan, thank you again for doing this.
Thank you so much for having me, Anja, and thanks to you and Edward for organizing these kinds of events, and thanks for everybody to show up here. I'm very excited about today's book, and as Anja said, I will try to keep the introduction a little bit shorter today, so we will be out of here a little bit sooner than 75 minutes. You already see what we are talking about here today. This is a book we are talking about, and we had this kind of controversial intro to that because of the introductory remarks. The introduction to this book is actually written by David Campany, and it's reaching really for the top shelves here. So he's reaching for comparisons to Walker Evans and to Diane Arbus. And part of what I will try to do is where these comparisons come from and what does he mean by that? And let me try to frame this for you a little bit. Let me share my screen with you. The title this time had passed so damn quickly. This is actually not a title that I came up with. This is from the introductory remarks of Rune Johansen that he made in the beginning of the book. We will read the whole quote in a minute. But Rune Johansen is someone that I did not know until a month ago, and that is basically what this is about. How this could happen, that I did not know him. Let me start at the beginning because Rune Johansen is a photographer from Norway, from the northern parts of Norway. And the only reason why I know him is because I was there on vacation. And before I went to vacation, I stumbled upon this article in Blind Magazine. I do not know if everybody knows Blind Magazine, which is quite a prominent publication. They have an online website where they talk about photography, where there are a lot of high class where you can find a lot of high class essays. They really cover a lot of ground there. I can highly recommend this website, and the paywall that they have in front of that is really worthwhile. So there are a lot of really great writers behind this paywall. In the beginning of the summer, they published this one here. So this was the 100 most influential people in the photography industry. So they covered a lot of household names that everybody knew in the scene. Heads of MoMA, heads of the New York Times publishing department, the New York Times photography department, publishers like Steidl and Mack and Taschen, and they wrote this here. So at a time when visual culture is more powerful and pervasive than ever, influence is no longer confined to household names or our award-winning images. Today's most impactful figures operate at every level of the field, from directors of prestigious institutions like MoMA and Aperture to editors behind global outlets like the New York Times and Le Monde, to grassroots organizers uplifting marginalized voices. These individual shapes shape what we see, how we interpret it, and who gets to participate in the conversation. I would really highly recommend everybody to read the actual article, because it lists these people. If you look at that, it mostly lists directors of prestigious institutions, editors of global outlets, the New York Times, Le Monde. Um, the number of grassroots organizers uplifting marginalized voices, they are a little bit underrepresented. Um, the whole article, which you probably gather from the initial photo that you see here, stirred quite a lot of conversation, quite a lot of outrage in the community. As much as it is nice to see who makes these kinds of conversation, who shapes how we interpret photography, there's also a danger in here. And the danger is, yeah, these individuals shape what we see, how we interpret it, and who gets to participate in the conversation. And the dangerous part of that is that they also shape what we don't see. They tell us how to interpret things, how to frame things. And especially that brings up the uh, age-old gatekeeper conversation. They also choose who gets to participate in the conversation, but also who gets not to participate in the conversation. And so this article immediately sparked this discussion about what is photography. So, and especially who defines what is photography, as these people are dominantly white. There are a lot of males in there, but they are basically the representative of the status quo of photography. And it inspired this article, which is basically a response to that. It's what the fuck photography? Thoughts on this Blind Magazine's top 100. And this is an article that appeared, that came out in American Suburb X. Brett Feuerham basically asked, why are they also white and Eurocentric? So it's basically, why are there a lot of people of color, a lot of people from places other than New York, London, Berlin, Paris? Why are they all left out? So it was basically the question, uh, who gets to define what photography is and what is not photography? He observes that not a lot has changed. And the way he built this up was a fictional conversation between the things that stood in this article and his own reflections on this. So compiled, this is a direct quote from the article. Compiled with a global perspective, this selection reflects the ability to challenge conventions, push boundaries, and drive photography forward, whether through innovation, education, inclusion, or fearless storytelling. Together, these 100 people represent the diverse ecosystem that defines the contemporary photography industry. And if you look at the people, well, actually, these people do nothing of that. So neither is this a global perspective because it is very Eurocentric, nor is this something that challenges conventions. I have the highest respect for publishing houses like Taschen and Mac, but at the point where they are right now, they pretty much represent the status quo. What they haven't done is they still want to participate in this idea of pushing boundaries, of being fearless in storytelling, and pushing this idea of inclusion. So not a lot has changed if you actually look at these institution, except for the marketing speak. So everybody wants to participate in these kinds of, yeah, we're the revolutionaries and we push the boundaries and we challenge the status quo, which is a little bit weird because you are the status quo. And it also sparked a lot of discussion on in Blind Magazine. And the weird thing about that was that Blind Magazine itself, they responded in a way, very cookie cutter way of this. As we share your views on diversity, it is just the fact that a lot of key positions in the industry in Europe and America are held by mostly white people, sadly. If you read Blind regularly, you know that we defend diversity among photographers and are quite socially engaged. And everybody responded to that. Yes, thank you for being quite so socially engaged. We wish that you would actually be more into this idea of change and actually implement it in your institutions and not only talk about this. Personally, I was especially enraged about this because we are at a special moment in time where we are already in the middle of a backlash against these ideas of inclusion, diversity, the idea of that we have to decolonize these photography. And at a lot of places in society, as you already know, there is a backlash against this. There is this talk to, yeah, affirmative action. Haven't we done enough already? And should we not dial this down? And has this thing lasted too long? And if you put this together with how we enforce the technical means in AI to represent the actual status quo or what is peddled as the actual status quo, you can look at the new, perceivably new AI model Nano Banana from Google that they brought out as an image generation algorithm. So if you prompt Google today for a typical American family, this is, of course, what you get. So the Smiths, American Dream. So of course, it reproduces the white heterosexual norms of what a family is. And I would be happy if I could say, yeah, okay, this is America. This is a special moment in time. This is a special place. But no, if you prompt the AI for the typical German family, you get something like this. And I can assure you from my own experience in Germany, there are not a lot of people running around in lederhosen all the time and in dirndls. But of course, this is a stereotype, typical view that you get from a German family. And if you look at the German society today, our society has completely changed. So it has become much, much diverser than this picture suggests. And this is currently a battleground in the US as much as it is a battleground in Germany. So here we have the rise of the AfD, which is the alternative for Germany, which uses AI especially for their own propaganda. And they would like to go back in time to exactly where this picture comes from. So all of this is a battle around what the center is, what the center of the photographic world is, and who gets to define what the center of the photographic world is. Needless to say that the Blind Magazine and the article in the Blind Magazine did not mention that this is a Western way of defining what the center is. So it leaves out pretty much the whole rest of the world. And the whole rest of the world is way, way bigger than the Western countries of the US and Europe and Canada. So that is all of this is left out. So, and as every mathematician can tell you, the sphere doesn't have a center. The center is where you are. And if you are sitting in the middle of China, your world looks different. The same in India, and all these countries are left out. So this is the reason why I was particularly happy. All these discussions about how the visual culture is usurped by AI and by fascism, and how the cultural battle has engulfed our visual culture right now. I was very happy to get out of this and to go off center. And I went for holiday here, which is the Lofoten, which is the upper part of Europe. So the most northern part of Norway. So it's in Europe, the north, and in the north, even more north. To give you an idea of this, the Lofoten are as close to the North Pole as they are to Berlin. So, and of course, when you look at the Lofoten, everybody in the Lofoten thinks like everybody where everybody lives, we all think that we are the center of the world. So this is a view onto the world from a very remote view of the world. Especially I was in this tiny little city. It is Henningsvær, which is on the at the western part of the Lofoten. And there I was surprised to see the caviar factory, which is a tiny museum in Henningsvær. To find in the middle of nowhere this wonderful museum. And you see already how beautiful this museum is. It is directly embedded in this kind of nature there. And it brings together these ideas of culture and nature, to look out of a window and you see the fjord and the mountains um, in the far. And this is let me get this out of the way here. And this is a book that I encountered there. And that was, to me, that was a complete surprise. And it really shook me to see that, because I didn't know Rune Johansen. And they had this book in the museum's shop. And I talked to the owner of the museum, who was the only person in the bookshop in the museum. So she was also taking care of her own museum there. And she told me that Rune Johansen is still living there in the area of Henningsvær. So he is today around 70 years old, but he's still around there. So everybody knows him, and she knows him too. Like, this is how Norway is. It is not a densely populated area. So, and strangely enough, that's when I looked at his pictures, it made me think of Europe. So the idea, as you've seen, there is Berlin, there is the North Pole in the middle, there is Norway and North and the Lofoten, and we are all part of this weird construct of people that somehow we all belong together. So we are all part of the same European Union. And this is a healthy reminder for this project that we're in. So the European Union, as most of you probably know, we started out as an economical project. So the idea to remove tax barriers, to remove tariffs, and to allow the free circulation of goods and allow trading between different countries. But this soon morphed into a political project to bring people together that have been at each other's throats. So we are in part of a political union with France. And France and Germany have tried to kill each other at one point in our history. It is also a social project. It brings together very different approaches to governing, to ways of life. And as you will see, it is also a cultural project. The idea that people from the Mediterranean Sea live together, from people whose lives are ruled by the Atlantic Ocean, and all of these weather conditions, these environmental conditions, all these shape very different forms of ways of life. So this brings us to another way of thinking about diversity. So diversity not only in terms of race and of gender, but also in a very simple way of ways of life. And this is the one thing that a lot of these inclusive dialogues from big companies, they always try to exclude this. So you can, Amazon basically doesn't care if you're black or white or yellow, as long as you buy their stuff. So, but when you try to eject yourself from this logic of consumption, then you get a problem. So, and this is interesting with Rune Johansen, and it's interesting with visiting this part of the earth where people just have a different relationship to the center of Europe and to other places in the world. It also brings brought up this question: what is European photography? As European photography countries includes my own country, and I cannot even tell you what is German photography because it is so diverse and it includes so many different approaches. So, and I can't even tell you more about Italian photography, which is governed by the sun, the Mediterranean sun. So it's a different way to approach photography. So let's look into what is Scandinavian photography. So an area that lumps together countries like Norway, Sweden, Denmark. They are often lumped together, and if you look in when you look at their photography, it also brings diverse approaches to photography. One thing that I noticed when I was in Norway, it all looks like Bergmanland. So the photography, the movies of Ingmar Bergman. This is what, when you look out of the window and you look out into the countryside, you always see that. So it is always like this. You always have this idea that you have an encounter with the world, everything is very peaceful, and then you do a wrong step, and then you end up in some kind of existential crisis there. So this is what you, when you go to Norway, this is always around you. You have photography like this thing, this kind of photography. Ragnar Axelsson, who photographed in Iceland. This is what we often associate with people that are very close to the Atlantic Ocean there, so, and very close to the northern part of the Atlantic Ocean, whose life are governed by fishing, by the strong impact of the weather, the strong impact of nature onto people. But you also have these kinds of underappreciated books like Christa Strömholm, who did in the 60s Poste Restante, which arguably is one of the major influences on a lot of photographers, not only in Scandinavia, but somehow it did not reach out of Scandinavia. It did not reach a wider audience. So I was introduced to this book by Jehu Engström, who is himself from Sweden. So he knows Christa Strömholm, of course, because he was brought up in a different photographic tradition. Christa Strömholm, he was photographing in the 60s, not only in Sweden, where he comes from, not only in Paris, but also in Paris, where he was living for a while. So he was photographing transgender people before it became fashionable to do that. So these are pictures from the early 60s. It's also this lineage of Christa Strömholm and Anders Petersen, who has learned his kind of photography from Christa Strömholm. He always references him. So this is another Swedish photographer that you probably know from this cover. This is the first time I encountered Anders Petersen. And I always thought, okay, this is the young Tom Waits that we see here. But this is actually a picture from Hamburg, from the Reeperbahn. So Anders Petersen is a towering figure in Scandinavian photography. And he influenced this very personal approach to photography, like you find it in the works of Hugh Engström, also another photographer from Sweden who eventually won the Hasselblad Award, but is also rarely known outside of Europe. It's the photography of Elina Broteros, who also often brings her very personal stories into her photography, but also has a strong leaning to the European history of painting, like here referencing Caspar David Friedrich in her work. So all of this is just Scandinavia. So it's just a tiny part of Europe that you see here. Which brings us to another Scandinavian photographer in Rune Johansen. He photographed, so the book we were looking at is basically one long project, one 25-year long project of photos that he took exclusively in this Lofoten, in this northern part of Norway there. And the thing that we will be looking at today is David Campany, who I have to say it, I adore him. So he's accidentally slipped into this list of influential people because it's right. He is extremely influential. Like all of these people in this list, they are extremely influential and they make excellent work. So this, he wrote the introduction, and this is how you see how these people shape how we perceive photography. The only reason why I picked the book up, because it says on the cover the foreword is by David Campany. So that piqued my interest here. And he said in the introduction to the work, he said, if one was to be art historian, it is perfectly possible to place Rune Johansen's work within a lineage of independent makers of intelligent photographic documents. This lineage would stretch back via Darren Arbus and Walker Evans to August Zander and Eugenia G. onto Matthew Brady and beyond. This is one small sentence that shows both of how much David Campany admires this work and the lineage he places him in, but it also shows this is how photographic history is shaped. It is an international Western photographic history we're talking about here. He also said, but in a way, this is the next sentence in this paragraph. But in a way, this is not a lineage at all, because all these photographers knew that what they were doing was just a more refined version of photography, a version that is there for anyone and everyone. This is why Johansen's photograph relates as much to family albums and your own snapshots as to any great canon of famous names. So these are the two poles of things that we'll be looking at when we're looking at Rune Johansen now. The one is placing him in, making this comparison to Diane Arbus and Walker Evans. Where do they come from? And the other is, where does this idea of a family album come from? And this brings us to looking at the actual book now. I placed this here in the middle of this. This is a Hasselblad 500. This is the camera that he has been that Rune Johansen has been taking all his pictures with. And let me take Diane Arbus and her family albums and Walker Evans. Let me take them away for a minute. And let's start at the beginning of this, because I want to show you why we are talking about this, why we are talking about this camera. And now let me read this first introductory sentence to you. This is the first sentence here in the book. An awful lot of things that had happened. Time had passed so damned quickly. And at the center of this chaos and praise, my camera was stolen. My friend for more than 25 years was taken from me, was taken away from me, gone forever. So this is basically what we're talking about. And if Rune Johansen asks me right now if he wants to have this camera, I will be glad to send them to him to help him make more pictures here. Because the reason for why this book only goes from 1991 to 2014 is because his camera was stolen. And once his camera was stolen, he stopped making photographs. And this is an interesting sentence to place at the beginning because it brings up these two poles of being fanatic about photography, of being in love with your camera, your friend, calling your camera a friend. But on the same, in the same instance, we immediately think about there must have been happened something else. So if your camera gets stolen, yeah, get a new one. You would immediately say, "Ah, it's not a big deal," but it is a big deal. So the chaos and the time that had passed so damn quickly, that is obviously a big deal. So the first sentence immediately hints at something that is hidden behind this, behind photography. And this is something we see throughout the book here. So it starts with some black and white pictures. The black and white pictures here in the beginning, these are the only three ones we find in the book. The other incident that happened to Rune Johansen that, apart from his camera being stolen, is that the film that he was using, he was most exclusively using Fujireala 100 that has been discontinued. So he's pretty much someone who was raised in this in the tradition of analog color photography. So this is why he is so tied to this camera, to the medium format, to the square. Don't know if you've ever looked through this kind of viewfinder, because this is how these things look. They always have a square format. You always look down through the viewfinder at your subject, so you break the contacts with your subject to have your camera only relate to the subject, so you're not directly relating to the subject. So all of this is tied to a certain camera, a certain film, a certain aesthetic, and a certain way to interact with people. So these are the introductory images here. They work as a kind of a setting. And when I talked about Bergman Land, Bergman country, of course, Norway is also Bergman country. It's also this beautiful, breathtaking nature out there, but it also has these hints of darkness in them. This is the foreword that I mentioned by David Campany. And this is the first picture that we see. So Rune Johansen is not, doesn't have a traditional education in photography. So he's a self-taught photographer. And before he started photographing in his near vicinity, because he comes from North Norway and he still lives in North Norway, he has struggled to find what it is that he wants to photograph. And the switch that he found was just interacting with the people of his surrounding and talk to them and photograph, especially in this tiny contained area of North Norway and the Lofoten. So basically, this is just a couple of kilometers around Henningsvær, so the city that we've seen in the beginning. And his way of photographing is talking to people, going into their houses and photographing inside these houses. And the photographs that he does are always photographs that talk about how people live there, how they interact, and their life is pretty much governed by the nature they inhabit. So how the nature that surrounds them is. So the winters are harsh, the nights are short in the winter, they are extremely long in the summer. And these are the houses that we see. And you immediately see this is the introduction to this. So he starts with, this is how we live. These are the houses we inhabit. This is the weather that we see. These are our kitchens. This is how community works in Sweden in the winter. And this is how harsh the winters are. And these are the quirky little things that people have in their houses there. It's always some weirdness in every picture. Sometimes you ask yourself if these houses are actually inhabited. But you immediately see at the beginning these kinds of culture of the people there. So they are all workers. A lot of them are fishers, so they have these emblems of fishers. There's always this hints towards spirituality, and there are these tiny little details in there of these long nights and these crafts that people take up there. And it's I already talked to this about with Anya. The amazing thing about Rune Johansen is that all of this looks like staged photography, but he was very careful not to ever touch anything in the houses that he visited. So even though this looks, the images look totally constructed and they look totally staged, they are not. This is how the people live there. This is how they arrange their home. And this is one of the reasons why David Campany comes up with this idea of a family album. These images look are very close to the people. What an intimate situation to take someone into your house and show them, yeah, this is how I live. These are the things that I have in my house. These are the things that are important to me. And he always finds these weird little details here, like this deer that you see here, this stuffed deer that is suddenly appearing here inside here. So all of these pictures are always about how they relate to the nature that surrounds them. So this is how they try to bring the nature into them. And an important aspect of his photography is this constraint, the constraint of using just the square format. And this is something that I took away from this. Is why I pulled out my Hasselblad in there. What an amazing idea to constrain yourself to only use the square format and only compose in the square format. And the endless number of possibilities this constraints opens up. He talks about the sprinkles throughout the book are these quotes from him. I'll read you another one because this speaks to his approach to photography. So what makes a photography good? I don't know. What I see in the viewfinder has to work before I can press the shutter. Everything has to be right, or else my finger hesitates. I won't press the shutter. That's all I know. And this is what you feel in pretty much all of these images here. They are so tightly constructed. So it's like he has a physical way of feeling an image if an image is right. Everything has to come together. These scenes of isolation here, these tiny little houses in the middle of nowhere, and these tiny little sheep that you see here almost vanishing in the shadow of the next mountain to it. So these pictures have these formal qualities, these layers. This is horizontal, this vertical layering of elements, but it also always has this other component of having a content to them. And this is actually the first portrait. Until here, you would think, what is the book about? It is about how we live, and it only has still lives to them. So here, this is the first portrait that he does. And this is how he approaches people. He puts people quite literally in the center of his work. But this is what I meant with quirky little situations. I'm not sure if you can observe this, if you can really see these kind of details in here. This is looks like a still life of somebody throwing out all their furniture out of the window. And this furniture seems to be stuck here somehow in the window. So all of his images have this moment of you being puzzled. Okay, what's happening here? What is it actually that I'm looking at? And this has this other element that we could be looking at a family album. This is such an intimate shot. This could be your grandma that you're looking at here. And she has this nice little gesture in there, but it's an intimate moment that is capturing here. And the difference to the family album, at least to the family album of my family here, is that neither her feet nor her head is cut off. So this is an intimate moment, but it's also wonderfully constructed and wonderfully framed. This is something where you have to make sure, okay, you see this when you compare this to my hand, this is a large book, and it has to be a large book because he's introducing these tiny little details in here. Something that you probably can see is that there is in the background, in this immense grassland, there are two tiny little houses. So this is what I meant with this enormous number of pictorial ideas that he has all the time. And he doesn't only have these ideas, these pictorial ideas with his landscapes, like placing these houses at the farthest edge of his viewfinder, but he also has this with people. And I don't know, you probably see this tiny little joke that he has embedded in here, like telling this person to stand on your couch and place yourself in the middle of the flag and have this tiny crown on the top of your head. But these are the things. This is one of the pictures that open up this darkness underneath here. There is these hints on sexuality here. This with a sex doll in the middle of this, but there is also this hint onto horror with this poster from The Exorcist here in the background. And this is obviously in horror fan because it has this hint onto Ghostbusters here that you see in the lower left here. But this opens up a trapdoor onto the complexity of the people that he's photographing there. And this is the leeway. So this is the space he opens up. This innocent looking elderly person here that you see here and connected with this here. We don't know who belongs to this picture. But these are the kinds of stories because it is a complete way of world building that he does. The houses where he lives, the weird little details that he finds in these houses, and here these weird scales that he finds, that the houses are too small for the people who inhabit them. These giants, and you will probably keep this in the back of your head because this is where these hints towards Diane Arbus comes from, because she is also interested in people not fitting into the environments that they are put in. So this is probably something that reminds you of this, a giant visiting his Jewish family. A picture, famous picture by Diana Arbus. Like these kinds of details where you have no idea, okay, what is happening in here. He mainly focuses on older people. So this is kind of an outlier here that you see these kids in here. Most of the people that you see in the pictures are older. He has these kinds of images here where you see that he is making a complete picture of the area because everybody has to rely on his own self to repair things. You find when something breaks down in the middle of nowhere, it's often not possible to call a handyman, so to call somebody to repair stuff. This is different from the city. You cannot just go to a shop to have stuff repaired for you. So you have to repair things for yourself. So you find a lot of these workshops in there. So, and you can imagine that these are the people where you go, and these people are capable of repairing stuff for you. And this is a testament to his technical mastery, because this is a wonderful picture, wonderfully lit, and you can see all the details in here and can spend an endless time observing these tiny little details in here. And this is a kind of quirkiness of people that are remote from a standardized way of living. They are individuals, so they develop their own way of dressing. They develop their own way of organizing their homes, and these things go together. And this is one of the wonderful pictures in there, where you have somebody posing in front of the swimming pool. This is another interesting detail. You find these kinds of lamps all over, but only in the northern part of Norway. This is actually, I've never seen this anywhere else. Here again, this idea of placing somewhere, of apparently making fun of people by placing him inside this thing here. But it also opens up other aspects of these people. It connects them to their surrounding again. The interesting picture, the interesting part of this picture is here. This is a standardized thing that you can buy in every thrift store, but this is very personal. So this is how we organize our living, by putting these kinds of things into our living rooms. Here you see this thing again. So you see this all over the place because it's a standardized but also very localized commodity there. This again talks about the nature, that this is always placed in nature, but it also talks about the deep spirituality that people have in the Lofots. And this is one of these pictures where you could think, this is one of the critiques that people have with Rune Johansen's work, that he's making fun of the people, that he's putting them into positions where they look a little bit ridiculous. But for me, this, on the other hand, it shows a love and an appreciation of all the quirkiness with which we express our individuality in there. So I never see ridicule in his pictures. I always see love in his pictures. And this is something that shows in his approach to people, but this also, of course, shows in his approach to the way the people live and the way he wants to make that look fantastic in these kinds of pictures. And of course, these are the kinds of images that bring up these comparisons to Diane Arbus. It's not only that Diane Arbus was the same way that Rune Johansen is interested in outsiders, but he's also interested in how it is to live off center. What is the special things about living off center? The interesting thing here about this is how we all are connected. This is the farthest reach of Europe, and you see these markers of American culture here, like this kiss uh, poster here in the background, this American flag. So there is a connection between Norway, this farthest part of Norway, and the US. And these kinds of markers. He's looking for these kinds of intercultural intermingling there. This is another way of, okay, do you make fun of this person, or do you think, yeah, what an exciting way of dressing yourself, of having fun with how you look and not caring about what everybody else thinks how you look. Again, these markers of clashing of different cultures, how Norway and this remote part of the world is influenced by American culture. These relationships between culture and nature, how the life is shaped by trying to get your to wrestle your life from this nature that is very often not really kind to you, and it's really often a very harsh life that you have. Um, and it always, all these pictures have this wonderful formal rigidity to them. How wonderfully this is constructed with this cut off thing here at the farthest edge. This is, just to say, one of these things where I see not only the photography is great, but the editing is great. So this is a 1-2 punch of images. Here you have the connection here, how close people are to nature, to the nature that surrounds them, how they are connected to the Norwegian society in terms of this is a Norwegian king, this is a Norwegian Norwegian celebrity, but also this here on the farthest edge, which you cannot see, but here you can see it closer because it is a picture of Hitler. And there is the other part of Euros where I mentioned we've been at each other's throats. Basically, Hitler and the Germans have been at each other's throats in Europe. Of course, he also invaded Norway. So the fascists have been in Norway, and this is a weird thing to have to find in a household in Norway, because there was an occupation during the Second World War of Nazi Germany in Norway, and a lot of people have been killed by the Germans. So it's a weird thing to have and a weird thing to find in a Norwegian household. And can just go on with these pictures because it's just one thing, one great picture after another. Let me just rest on this one here because it is also, again, a testament to this idea of using a square frame all the time and constraining yourself to this, and how you can play with this, and how you can use the edges of a square to make a picture in there. But it's also a calendar here. And if you connect this to the saying at the beginning, these kinds of symbols appear at different times because this is about time that had passed so damn quickly. So it always has these two, all of his pictures have these two aspects to them, a very strong formal quality, but also this contextual quality, this content quality. And here you probably have your typical Norwegian family here, but he adds a twist in here with this cow family here in the background. Let me skip ahead, just to say how well this book is constructed by making these scale comparisons and bringing these houses together. And with this portrait, what a wonderful way to align the horizon here. To say, okay, this is how humans are placed in this immense nature that they inhabit. And this is another genius editing trick to have this house here reappear on the next page. This gives you a great flow through this book. Just let me skip through some details here. Again, a wonderful eye for details. Not only is this a great picture, but there's punctum to this picture with this captain looking out of the window here. And this is another aspect of time passing, though the captain who has gone to sea, but now he is probably retired and in his home, and all he's left is spending the time at land and looking out of his window. But this is a reminder because all of these things are from 1991 to 2014. So this is a very current book. So of course he has included these kinds of, yeah, we are going into the future. So this is a base of a windmill that you see there. So this is the kind of clashes you get in Norway. So this is another way to talk about time passing so damned quickly here. People still being inhabiting their traditional clothes, but also, yeah, we're now being dragged into the future here. Another quirkiness of this run-down houses in here that you see all the time. What a beautiful formal clarity all his portraits have. And this is my lesson for portrait photography. People don't have to be relaxed all the time. This is obviously something that is super staged, super strange. What a weird situation. Nobody is comfortable in the situation. And yet this is a great picture. So he makes people stand on their couches just to get his shot off. So the tension is palpable here. Again, history, time passing so damned quickly with things dating back to the previous century, but also to this century, spanning of generations that you see in here. So it always has these two aspects, people being immersed in this immense passing of time and also in this immense landscape here. All of this is about relationships to your history, but also relationships to, which you probably can't read here right now, but it is the world that he is considered. And let me end on this weird sequence here, which again brings us to his photography, for me, very similar to Diane Arbus. This is where I think this comparison comes from. It expands the notion of what we think humanity is. And you can only do this, you cannot expect fashion photography to do this. You cannot expect this center of photography to do this. If you want expansion, you have to look at the edges of the world. And this tells you, for me, these are my people, these are European people by definition, because we are all part of this European project. And this shows me the dimensions of this project, of this European project, of what we bring together, of what we can achieve when we say, okay, these are all the people that somehow try to work in this weird, defunct, often strange union of people. And let me end on this one, because religion is, of course, a point for him and for Norway and for this Lofots. Scale is an issue for this. And it's always this kind of disturbance, this kind of breaking down of things. I would also mention Roger Bollen, that is the other person that I came to think of, who is working on the edges of what we think humanity is, and is always expanding what we think that is. Scale, this is something where the editing comes from, where the editing comes into play. This is usually something you do not do. This makes these houses look tiny in comparison to this giant here. But all of the book is about scale, about the scale of humans in nature. And let me end on this one here, because this is the other connection to Diane Arbus. So a lot of these pictures are about Christmas. So Christmas is very important at this part of the world, because you all know that Santa Claus is coming from there. So you have a lot of people that engage in these kinds of Christmas fetishism. And of course, we can make fun of these kinds of collectors, but we can also see this love and this respect to this endeavor they take, because this is their life. This is what they think important, and it is important to, as a photographer, to respect this importance they place on these kinds of things. And this is what I always see when I look at these Rune Johansen pictures. Of course, everybody has fun with this, but he's also has a lot of respect of that. And let me end here at the centrum, because this is the centrum of the world. For Rune Johansen, this has always been the center of the world, and he's never left this part of the world. So for us, looking out from New York, London, Paris to this remote place of the world, for us it looks like center, but it's actually the center of the world. And let me add on this here, because this brings us back to Diane Arbus, because it reminds us of her Christmas tree. I hope I find it here somewhere. Let me end on this one, because there it is. And these are just like Diane Arbus looks at these kinds of rituals, because she understands that these kinds of rituals, like Christmas, this is what connects us. This is why she is so interested in these kinds of rituals. And this is the other scale issue, which you probably have known here. So I think that this is the idea where David Campany got this idea. Okay, this is what reminds me of Diane Arbus in a way, both in the approach to people living at the edge of what we perceive in the Western hegemonial world at the center, and what is perceived at the edge of what we perceive at the edge, what happens at the what we perceive at the edge of the world. And this is all I have for you. Just high praise for this really amazing book. And I just want to add one thing here, why I started with this kind of with this weird introduction about the about gatekeeping and about these 100 most influential people. I was embarrassed of myself to not know Rune Johansen. So I think really this is some kind of a revelation for me to have discovered him, and I cannot totally understand why David Campany places him in this lineage of Walker Evans, Arbus. So this is all I have for you today.
Yeah, hi, this is Victoria. Let me just say something. Am I still unmuted? Muted.
No, we can hear you now. We
Okay.
can hear you.
Yeah, this Lofoten, the Lofoten photography, I come from the same, but Finland, and I've spent a lot of time there. And so it's almost a positive and negative. Those images in Finland, they're a little bit different because it's the Russian influence. It's probably the interiors would be a little bit harsher. The weather is harsher, and it's interesting. He doesn't show much of when it's snowing in the winter. That kind of, there's a few shots of and outside there's mountains. In Finland, you don't have that. You have something, the dense woods. Yeah. But it's really also that other kind of, not fashion, although many of the Finns these days, when winter comes, this is end of December, they go to Dubai. So now in the family photos, it's all Dubai, Egypt. They don't want to stay there. It's darker, And
Victoria, you make two excellent points. So the one point is Finland is very different from Norway. And this is why it's so weird. It's already weird to say, okay, what is European photography? It is still weird to say what is Scandinavian photography, to lump countries like Sweden, Finland, and Norway, to lump them all together, because they have some very individual traits to them. And these individual traits, these individual climates, these individual people, they shape how photography is. But just to bring up another point, I clearly think that this is what Rune Johansen does. This is fashion photography. If we understand fashion photography in a way that people use clothes to express themselves, to dress themselves in a way to say, okay, this is what reflects my personality. And when you remember this woman in this dress with all these markings over her and this weird hat, what a wonderful picture, and what a wonderful person this is. If you think, okay, there is a connection to this. She is, how brave she is to say, okay, I get dressed in this. I express my personality like this, and I put myself into this fashion photography situation and let myself photograph this way. What a wonderful way to expand the world of fashion and say, okay, it's not only Giorgio Armani or Dior, it's this. It's also this.
Very, very interesting. I've spent a lot of time, like I was August, September, and I'm going back for November, December, when it's very dark in Finland. And, trying to go to the countryside, because the city already, they dress for, for how they see in Instagram and stuff like that. They have to be, fashionable, what they consider fashionable. And not
bring us some pictures that we
I
do.
will. Thank you. Yeah.
Make a comparison of how the Norwegians look and how the people in the Lofoten looks. Well,
and see,
even the
you see
Lofoten and the center of Norway, that there is already a difference, because the center of Norway looks completely different from this harsh area where you have the Atlantic Ocean and a lot of fishing and a really, really tough, harsh life. They're governed by the countryside there and by the ocean.
Stefan, do you know who the editor of this book is? Is there any information about that in the book? I found the sequencing and the selection really fascinating.
I don't really know. I
Okay.
think that David Campany didn't have a lot to do with that, because he only wrote the foreword. And there is limited, there is some about the designer, so that is Gregor Ulf Nilsson, but I have no idea what the connection between Rune Johansen and the designer was, if he just gave the pictures and he was involved in the making of this book. I really don't know.
So you talked to the owner of the museum, right? Did you get in touch with the photographer as well? No, not really, right?
No, I tried to. So he's really leading at this point. Is really leading a secluded life. So he quit photography basically because he got his camera stolen. But as far as I have understood it, there has to have happened something else. And this is why I saw there are all these hints of this is bright, cheerful photography, but it always has these hints on something darker in there. So I have no idea what has happened to him.
Fascinating. I didn't know him either. I love the images a lot. Are there any questions from anybody? Stefan, I love this book. When did it come out? Did it just come out?
No, it is actually.
I mean, it goes until 2014, but I was just wondering if it came out just recently.
No, it's already older, so it's from 2018. I tried to get in contact with Forlaget Press, but they didn't respond to me. So
I emailed them also, that they didn't respond to me either.
So they are defunct, so their website doesn't work anymore. I don't know what their status is. So I was really lucky to get this into this museum shop. So if you want to have a copy of that, please travel to Norway. Travel to Hasselblad.
Great idea. Let's all go together. And you have a question?
Yes, thank you. What was the film that he used for this wonderful book that was discontinued?
He used Fuji Reala 100.
Fuji.
And that is some of the, that Fuji they are still producing some of their slide film, but not all of that.
Fuji Reala?
Reala. And Reala has been discontinued, I think, in 2012 something.
Thank you.
Stefan, what will your next photo book show be? Do you know that already?
I don't know. So I probably will. Probably something like this here. So there is a lot of stuff that came out of this color photography course. So there is Blue by Derek Jarman, there is Chroma by Derek Jarman, which gave this course its title. And it is, of course, Johann Wolfgang von Goethes Die Farbenlehre.
Yeah.
So, and I just give you a quick peek of that. This is an atlas of rare and familiar color. This is one of the most beautiful books on color that I've ever seen. They have been collecting all agents from which people have made color, and they have grouped that by color. So there is a chapter on red, on yellow, on blue. So probably something like that.
All right. If there are no more questions, then I want to thank all of you for being here. And just one more time, check out our upcoming classes. I added new teachers so that you can be inspired by new people and new approaches. Please check them out. And see you at the next photo book show. Thank you so much. Bye, everybody.
Thanks for being here.